Howard,
So what would be wrong with moving Tuesdays to Friday?
Tuesday is 10 o'clock. Friday is 9. We used to always be 10 o'clock on Friday. I mean,
Tuesday.
Wednesday, we used to meet on Tuesday. So
Right.
Friday was just the next week. Next thing is
Well, maybe what we could do is record it Tuesday and show it again Friday.
before the game. I think you could leave Friday. 11 or 12 minutes. And don't come here. They only do it. Online. They know it's a minute.
Let him come on, Tuesday.
I would say half a dozen or a dozen guys. Sign women. I think
good morning. Good morning, everybody. Just a reminder to turn off your phones. That's the master of ceremonies, you. Dr. David Abadachi.
Abada.
I can't do it. Just say Dr. David. But I'll introduce him.
Dr. David Abbott.
It's 4 syllables.
Abadi.
Ajabadi. Ajabadi. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday morning edition of Bagel Boy Live. Can you hear me now? Okay. For those who haven't bought a 50-50, last call, in addition to the 50-50 where you win half the pot, we have an additional probably 5 or 10 more drawings for that same ticket where we're giving away wine and other tidbits to the generosity of Herb. Herbie, every so often decides to clean his closet out, and he likes to share his goodies with us. So it's another opportunity to win another prize. So last call if you haven't gotten it yet. Today we have a very interesting speaker, Dr. David Abaji. He's going to talk on the laws of life. It's going to be interesting and it's going to affect all of us. So please listen on. But before we get started, we're going to have Dr. David. Where are you? Come on over and pick a winner. And this way you'll make at least one friend, but you'll make many when they hear your talk. So. And we want to once again thank Herbie Kasoff for donating the wine and the other goodies for us. Okay. Can we have the tickets, please? I can have the tickets while he does that. Thank you. And the winner
74754-216.
last number 216. Come on down.
Donated to.
All right. Thank you. Carl Markowitz is our winner today, and he generously donated the money back to the Bagel Boys, so thank you. But hold on to those tickets, because here we go. We're in for a wild ride. Here we go. We'll see what we got. Where'd he go?
Right here.
No, the tickets. He took the tickets. Where's? Hold on, please. While we're waiting for the tickets to come back for the extra drawings today, don't forget, next month, we have an author coming for a book signing. We have lots of other goodies. There's a singles dance. We're also going to talk about, maybe like we did last fall, right before Labor Day, we had a bus to the Bagel, to the Orioles baseball game. And I'd like to have hold on, Ryan, where are the tickets? We have drawings. We need the tickets. Okay, here we go. Here come the tickets. Stay there. Take all these out of here. Take the money and the.
Okay, just pick the tickets. Let's just do it.
Picking out ticket?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, for drawing number 1,
209.
209 are the last.
Hello. All right. Come on up here. Jerry, you won the table. You got to come back after it's over because everything will fall. But in the meantime,
Oh, my goodness.
here's a nice bottle of wine. It's not the Moscato, but they make other wines. It's good. Please don't go to your liquor store and turn it in for something else. Please. All right. The next one. You're gonna take, you winning?
Yeah.
All right. Take his Chardonnay. Kendall Jackson, largest selling Chardonnay in America.
Next.
I don't know why I don't sell it anymore. 198.
198.
All right.
Okay,
Take Moscato.
Thank you.
All right.
next.
All right. Hold on. This one, there'll be no drawing. I got a hold of this T-shirt.
206.
No, we're not giving, I already pre-drew that one. Hold that for the next one.
Come on down. This is gonna be for something else.
All right. Step over here.
What do we?
Here's a, all right, take the Chardonnay. Side? No, you get the wine.
Yeah, this is mine.
Oh, I'm sorry. You get this, the first aid kit.
So I have to, what's not gonna have that one, what's that?
No, you can't have that. This is, anybody need a Band-Aid? A tourniquet? All right, here's a T-shirt. Back off. I have a sister and I'm not afraid to use her. This goes to Cy. I understand Cy has a sister. Come up here, Cy. Cy has a sister that if he has a problem, he's gonna be wearing his shirt. All right. Take it to your sister.
I don't think they're bitter, but I think it's good.
Well, take it to a tailor.
That's it?
No, one more. All right. This says, not all heroes wear
197.
197. All right,
There you go.
take that home, give it to her for Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me have something to do. Here.
All right. Dr. David Ajabaji, did I say that right? Ajibade, okay, I'm close. The Laws of Life, is currently volunteering as a community health educator for the Alzheimer's Association by assisting with education and outreach programs to help support families living with dementia. His extensive experience on TV, radio, and at speaking engagements enables him to deliver a wealth of knowledge on the challenges associated with Alzheimer's, especially for those in the Black community. Welcome.
Thank you, Melanie. Good morning, everyone. How we doing? Good. How we doing? Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for having me. A big thank you to the Meyerberg Center for this wonderful meeting. I was talking with someone else at the back there, and he was saying how it's so much easier for women to get together, and especially after retirement, and shoot the breeze and do whatever else women do, right? But for men, it's a bit of a challenge. So this is a really, really large group, I gotta say. So give yourselves a round of applause, please. Yes, good job, really good job. All right, so I'm going to get started really quickly. As Melanie said, I volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association. I am also a doctor, a physician, but I run a foundation, and we do a lot of research with both here and in Nigeria. You might have guessed that I'm not from this Baltimore area. Yeah, I did, didn't I? I mean, I'm really good at this thing. A great Jewish accent. So I am from Nigeria, which happens to be the country with the largest number of Black people on the planet. And my deep interest in dementia, like she said, is also because we Black people tend to have twice the rate of dementia as white people do. Did you guys know that? It's terrible. It's really, really bad. And so it's shocking to me that not enough people are talking about it, especially people who look like me who are doctors. Why aren't we talking about this? Needless to say, dementia is a big problem for everybody. And so it's part of my heart to really get the word out in practical terms to lay people, to help you understand at every point in time, whatever scenario, what the things that you are doing or not doing that could be putting you on the path to dementia. But that's not exactly what we're talking about today. We're talking about the laws of life. And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir because primarily we're talking about the things that make human life work, the things that affect your health, the things that affect your business, the things that affect your vocation, the things that affect your happiness in life. And again, it feels like I'm preaching to the choir. I remember I used to speak in Tulsa. I actually lived in Tulsa for a while. And there's this retirement home called Montereau. It's one of the top 10. How's my accent so far? Are you guys hearing what I'm saying? Am I too fast? Am I okay? Okay, good. So I used to go speak there at that retirement home. And after one of the meetings, a lady walks up to me and she says, "Oh, I wish my son could hear you speak about this." And I was talking about the laws of life. And I'm like, "Okay, how old is your son?" And she's like, "He's 60 something." And I was in my 30s, so she was in her 80s. And I feel that I think as King Solomon said, there are these little foxes that spoil the vine. There's these little things here and there. Sometimes we get to pick them up, especially with the Jewish community. I mean, you got great philosophy, you got great teachings that help you throughout life, but in many other cultures, we don't have those things. So I felt it made sense to bring these things together. All right, let's go to the next slide. That's enough of the preamble. My backgrounds, by the way, was primarily in radiation oncology. That's how I started my career. And it was when I was treating patients that I began to realize Some people did well, others did not. And when I really looked into why they did well,
The slides did not advance.
no, that's not it. The slide, okay, advance the next slide, please. All right, so is it advancing? Okay, so there were some kids, some patients, and we had all from kids to adults. Some did well, maybe because they had good family support. Others did well because they had a business they wanted to go back to. And by the way, in Nigeria, they always come in the later stage. They're for different reasons, they tend to present very, very late. But even at that, we could see once we started treatment, some responded very well. Like I said, some could have been due to just having a great attitude. Some could have been maybe due to they wanted to go back to their business, good family support, and so on and so forth. Some had a great deal of faith. They just believed that the treatment would work and they would get better. And so it's been a passion of my life to be able to put all those different things together, all those different reasons, and put it in one single philosophy or framework that we could share with everybody, to say like a checklist, right? So you got to do this, this, this. If you have cancer, if you have dementia, if you're trying to avoid cancer, you're trying to avoid dementia, you got to go through these steps, right? And so and one of the things I always was doing was whatever religion they had, I would always I would open the book of Proverbs to them, and I would say, I would take them to the verse that said, chapter 14, verse 30. It said, a sound heart is the life of the flesh. A sound mind, some translations say, is the life of the flesh. If your attitude is right, if you're thinking, if you have a more optimistic view, it tends to boost the health of your body. It tends to boost your immune system. It tends to boost your bones and so on and so forth. So I would start with that. And like I said, with everybody, and we would work with it. And I would, as much as they would allow me to work with them, I would work with them. In addition to the cancer treatment, the chemotherapy, the radiotherapy. And again, we saw tremendous results depending on these things. So here are the 7 laws. Let me see. Well, I wish there was a slide I could look at here. Okay. So I came up with this, what I call the building strength approach. It's all about strength. How can we strengthen our bodies? How can we strengthen our minds? Not just when we're sick, but before we get sick, because it's all about living a healthy life. What are the things that we need to know to strengthen? And again, the Jewish community too, you got to be financially strong, you got to be physically strong. It's happening now in Israel. Next slide. Make men, I love this quote. I think I need to be in a good position to see this. Okay, I'm going to stay here. All right. Make men large and strong. I love this quote. And tyranny will bankrupt itself in making shackles for it. Am I blocking anybody here? Yes? Can you all see the screen? No? Leave the microphone on. Sorry. All right, next slide. I'll speak slower. Somebody. All right, I will try to speak slower. How's that? The next slide. So this is a long quote. I just think it's really good. It is the opinion of those who best understand the physical system that if the laws were strictly observed from generation to generation, there would be an end to the frightful diseases that cut life short and of the long list of maladies that make life a triumph or a trial, and that this wonderful machine, the body, this goodly temple, would gradually decay, and men and women would at last die as if gently falling asleep. Don't you love that quote? Next slide. Basically, it's trying to say the things that I'm going to talk about in the next few slides. There are things that we can do that would improve the quality of our health. And here they are. These are what I refer to as the 7 laws of life. And these are quite quite obvious when you think about them, but trust me, most people simply don't pay attention to these things like they should. So here they are. The quality of your life, or your health, or your business, or your marriage, or whatever it is, depends on one, the words you speak, or the words you hear, or the words you read, or the words you write, especially in the younger years of life. Number two, the beliefs you hold dear. Number three, the thoughts and emotions, including your attitudes, your imaginations, what you think about all the time. The quality of foods and drinks. This is huge, folks. What you put in your mouth is huge. Has a tremendous effect. And we'll go into that some more. The quality of care you give your body. That's a big topic. The quality of your relationships. Huge studies coming out of Harvard now about the importance of relationship. And of course, the quality of work you do. Next slide. So I mentioned little foxes. These are the small things. These are things that we tend to overlook. And hopefully I'll point out a few things. Next slide, please. Let's start with words. Again, this is something that everybody, I guess, here would appreciate. But from a medical perspective, I'm going to point out a few things, but also from a life perspective. Next slide. Everybody knows who Martin Luther King is. Most people don't realize that he said over and over and over and over again that he wasn't going to live past the age of 40. Now, most people remember, his close friends remember him when JFK was killed, assassinated. He turned to one of his best friends and he said, if they can kill an American president like this, I will not live past the age of 40. They thought that was the only time he said it, but he said it over and over and over again. Next slide. One of my favorite presidents for different reasons. He was a very sickly child. Finally, his father told him, listen, son, if you're going to live long, you're going to have to take take it upon yourself to build your health and build your strength. He was very asthmatic. So he took his father's words seriously and he began to really, really push himself. He became known for his whole embracing life, going out the outdoors, man, the rugged American kind of thing, Rough Riders and so on. And finally, but his doctor saw how he was pushing himself. And his doctor pulled him aside and he said, listen, you're going too hard on yourself. You got to take it back. If at this rate, you might kill yourself. And this was what he said to his doctor. He looked his doctor in his eye. I want to live for a long time. I want to be healthy. I'll keep on doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to die by the age of, what is that? Basically, he said he's going to die by the age of 60. Now, this was somebody who was supposed to die in his childhood. What age do you think he died? Yes, sir. Good job. Next slide. All right. So let's talk about health and words. This is a French. Does anybody know or has heard of Emile Coué? He's a psychologist from France. He understood the power of words, and so he did a study in Canada. And these are people in the sick, the sickest of the sick in the hospitals. And he would go to them, and he would tell them. This is all he told them to do. Every day, say to yourself as many times as you can, every day and in every way, I'm getting better and better. Can we say that together? Every day and in every way, I'm getting better and better. That sounds really simple, but I can tell you, those words, eventually people start believing them, as you well know. You can say a lie so many times, you believe the lie yourself, but you can say the truth too so many times and you believe the truth. And eventually, the body catches on. And he saw that many of his patients, the ones who listened to what he and took it to heart, they began to improve. And it doesn't matter what the disease was. I'm not saying they were cured, but they did improve. You could see a stark difference between those who did what he asked them to do and those who didn't. Next slide. So anyway, again, I feel I'm speaking to listen, it was Innie who asked me to come speak about the laws of life, right? I'm like, what I'm speaking, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir again, because you guys know, I feel I feel you guys know all this so much. But anyway, so the effect of words obviously depends on how close the person is to you, authority figures in your life. If your doctor says, I've had this experience when I'm trying to tell patients to do this, they will say, my doctors told me to do this. And whether the doctor is right or wrong is irrelevant. As long as the doctor said this, they will go to the grave believing what their doctor says, even if you bring them evidence to the contrary. And so it's a bit of a struggle. And again, back to the Bible, the Tower of Babel. Why? I've always asked this question. He could have done so many different things when he was trying to stop them from building the tower. Why was it the words he went after? The book of Isaiah, when he appeared to them in the throne room, and Isaiah was like, "Oh no, I'm undone." And he says, because I have unclean lips. I have seen the Lord of hosts. I have unclean lips. I'm undone. I'm finished. And God didn't contradict him. He said, yeah, well, let's deal with your lips first. He could have said, I deal with fornicators, rapists. I live with all kinds of crazy people. Why is it the lips? So there's a lot to be said about the words. And I feel we need to teach these things to the younger generation, because the younger generation clearly does not understand the power of words. I mean, they're saying some stupid things, folks. They're saying some really dumb things. And they start saying it at this age. Golly, we're going to be in trouble. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So beliefs are important. I'm going to skim through. Your belief in yourself, your belief in God, your belief in your doctor, your belief in life. Some people believe they're not going to live longer than 60, like we just talked about. Some people believe that Alzheimer's disease is incurable, dementia is incurable. It's just going to get worse. If that's your belief, that's what's going to stick with you. There's always an answer. Everybody say that with me. There is always an answer. There's always a solution. Doesn't matter what anybody says. There is always a solution. Next slide. I love this quote from, I saw this at the World War II Memorial in DC. All right, next slide. I know I'm skipping through. Next slide. So we're going to talk about our thoughts and emotions. I'll get to it when we're talking about dementia, because what I want to do is, when we go through explaining all these different laws, we'll now go into how we can apply them, or how dementia applies to them. Does that make sense? Because I think anytime I'm in a group of people on the older bracket of life, it's very important to talk to you about dementia. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next. All right, relationships. Next slide. We cannot live for ourselves. 1,000 fibers connect us with our fellow man, and along these fibers, sympathetic threads, our actions run as courses, and they come back to us as, okay, very philosophical stuff. We are all connected. We affect each other. I can give you story after story after story. Now we're finding out scientifically that isolation can actually result in the shrinkage of your brain, the actual physical shrinkage of your brain. Isolation, prolonged loneliness. And again, this happens more with men than with women, especially after retirement. Next slide. Vocation, very important. Next slide. Very, very, very important for you to keep busy. But whether you've made millions or not, you've got to you got to be part of the community. You got to give back. You got to do something that pulls from within you to help others. Viktor Frankl, everybody knows who Viktor Frankl is? Yes? Okay. Our fundamental drive, the motivational engine that powers your existence, is the pursuit of meaning. And he saw that firsthand from being in Auschwitz, from seeing those who survived and those who didn't. It was those who had a sense of purpose, those who had something to look forward to. George Bernard Shaw, It is a true joy in life that a man or woman be used for a purpose that he considers greater than himself. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Okay, so let's see how this applies to the brain and to dementia and to Alzheimer's disease. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so everybody kind of knows what dementia is, right? All right. And we'll leave room for questions. So dementia is the umbrella term. Alzheimer's disease is a subset of dementia, albeit a very large, very, very large subset. So like 70 to 80% of all dementia cases are Alzheimer's disease. Okay, and here's what it is. The definition is a degenerative brain disease that is caused by complex brain changes following cell damage. And I highlight that for a reason. It leads to dementia symptoms that gradually worsen over time. The key there is cellular damage, cell damage. The neurons are being damaged over a period of time, usually in your early 40s and beyond. The sad thing is that most people don't start addressing it until 60, 65, or when the symptoms begin to happen. But if we understand what is causing the damage, where the attacks are coming from that is causing the damage, we should be able to maybe prepare, defend, protect against those things, or avoid those things that are causing the damage. So that's kind of like where things like the laws of life come in, but I do have a full course I talk about called Dementia's Dirty Dozen. All right, so there are about 12 different pathways that we have found out that lead to dementia. And the cool thing is that they all start with the letter I. So things like isolation, infections, immune functions, and so on and so forth. Next slide. So I kind of like put a graphic here to say, this is what happens. There's first cell damage, then brain changes, then degeneration, and then the symptoms just keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And what we're told is that it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. Just support your spouse until he or she ends up dying, maybe after 10 years. On average, it's about 10 years from diagnosis. That's simply, we're now beginning to find out there's a lot you can do to address that if you keep an open mind about it. Next slide. And I've put a brain there, and the key thing in the brain is that you have the connection between two brain cells. That's what is responsible for your thinking, your thoughts, your movement. Everything that you do with your body is dependent on two brain cells communicating, sending neurotransmitters from one to the other. I'm not going to go into that now. Next. I mentioned this in our last talk when I was here. There are only three things. Only three. Everybody say three things. There are only three things that lead to dementia. I mean, yes, I said dirty dozen, but if you were to break it down to the three most basic things, it's one, greater attacks, two, fewer defenses or less protection, and number three, when things begin to go wrong, you don't get prompt and appropriate medical care. And I won't, again, I do a whole talk about that, but it's just those three things. Let's move next slide. All right, so I see many of my patients or my clients, you see the fear in their words. My parent had it, my grandparent had it. I'm beginning to have the symptoms. I fear I'm going to have the same thing. And they say that over and over and over again. And sometimes I feel like just reaching across and just shaking them and saying, stop it. Don't keep saying that. We got to find a way to change your words. And that's hard to do. That's really hard to do when you're driven and motivated by fear, especially if you've had a lot of background in the past. Next slide. Beliefs, again, same thing. Next slide. Your thoughts and emotions, again, well, that's kind of like, and I apologize, we're kind of like going through these. I promise we'll settle down somewhere. Next slide. Okay, let's talk about food. From what my experience is that you think about beliefs, you think about words, you think about relationships. If there's one thing of the 7 laws that you can change or you can address quickly, like that, is what you put in your mouth. Okay? And I'm not talking about changing your diet completely. I'm not talking about changing your doctor so you have different medications. What I've found out is that once you begin to do the right things, especially when it comes to putting in your mouth. I mean, almost everybody takes pills. I take pills. If we begin to give you the right kinds of pills, we begin to see some changes. Maybe not immediately, but some changes. Next slide. And that's the easiest thing, in my opinion, that we can do. Sometimes it's not just what we're eating that's killing us, it's what we're not eating. So they might, I mean, you probably heard it all. Don't drink wine, don't eat bread, don't eat sandwiches. Yeah, I just hammer you with the things you're not supposed to eat. However, there are some things that you're supposed to put in. And I'm going to talk about a few of them. Next slide. All right, so these are, in my opinion, the most basic things and that I feel, I mean, and okay, I shouldn't say feel because there's a lot of research behind this. One of the things that our brains are lacking over time, and this compounds over time. By the time you get to be older, right, in your 60s and 70s, most people are lacking in these 7 things. So if you could find a way to have these things in ample supply in your brain, I mean, your body, but your brain definitely needs these things, then over a period of time, then to some degree, you have some protection, all right? And I'm not going to go through everything, but I do want to talk on one specific one. Next slide. Okay, of course, you got to add omega-3 fatty acids. Your brain is made up of fats. The majority of your fats in your brain are made up of omega-3s. Everybody knows omega-3s, right? If you're low in omega-3s, your brain is suffering as a result. We need fiber and we need antioxidants. Next slide. All right. Absolutely. Melanie, please. Yeah, thank you. All right. So while you're copying that or taking a picture, there's one, probably more than anything else. And it's hard for me to say it because these are so important. Like now, the B vitamins, B1 and B12. If you're lacking in B12, this is not, I mean, I don't know how do I say this? If you're low in vitamin B12, you could end up in the hospital with severe delirium and dementia-like symptoms. They would actually think you will be psychotic. All right. Now, that's in severe cases. Many people have this, what shall we call them, subacute deficiencies, and that we don't have enough, but it's not enough to cause us that make us end up in the hospital, but it's really bad as well. And that's B12. B1 too, then beginning to do major studies on B1. Can we move on now? Okay, next slide. All right, so what I want to talk about now, this specific nutrient, you can't get it in your food, so forget it. But if you have it in optimal amounts, you have 40% protection against dementia and 15 to 18% protection against developing diabetes. What vitamin do you think that is? Or what nutrient do you think that is? So can someone guess? Huh? Somebody said zinc. Zinc is probably one of the most important nutrients for the brain, but it's not zinc. Try again. Anybody else? Next slide. Did somebody say something? D, vitamin D. Really, it shouldn't be called a vitamin because your body makes it. And by definition, a vitamin is something your body can't make. Next slide. One of the, I don't believe in conspiracy theories, right? I promise you I don't. But the WHO has basically come, I read somewhere, the WHO has come out to say that it is not advisable to supplement with vitamin D. And I think, why would they come out and say this? We now know that vitamin D is so important from birth, or really from conception to adulthood. Amongst the most important things that we're finding out is that the vitamin D is important for the whole structure, for the protecting the whole. It's like a scaffolding. It helps to provide the scaffolding for the brain upon which the brain builds new cells and networks. Is the great, like a Voltron of the brain. It does several things. I have a few quotes here. Next slide. Next slide. Why would the WHO say such a thing? Why? I mean, it's bizarre. And I say this because I'm a Black person, and guess who has the lowest amount of vitamin D on the planet? Whatever studies you do is the Black people. Somebody said, I thought it was the Liberians that have the lowest amount of vitamin D because they're all inside and buried in their books. But no, it's the Black people because of our skin. Our skin acts as a sort of sunblock. It blocks out our ability to make vitamin D even when exposed in the sun. So we have the least amount of vitamin D. Next slide. Where's the one on vitamin D? Okay, so I had quite a few things from research studies that we had done, and it shows what happens when you deprive people of vitamin D. And it showed everything from memory problems to ability to think, ability to focus, ability to concentrate. Once you deprive people of vitamin D. Now they did some of these studies in animals, but they've also done in human beings as well. Vitamin D is critical. And I don't think our doctors and medical professionals pay much attention to it. Obviously, the older you get, the less vitamin D you have as a rule, because your skin is not as efficient as making vitamin D. So it makes sense to supplement as well. But you got to test your vitamin D levels here in the United States. So you have the ability to test your vitamin D. It's available. You can walk up to a lab and get it tested. We don't have that luxury in Nigeria. It takes a lot to get tested, but you have it here. So if there's one thing I want you to leave with, you got to test your vitamin D. Next. All right. So, sorry, go back a minute. So I mentioned the care you give your body. Again, I'm sorry we're rushing through this, but the 5 areas are so important. Importance of sleep, physical activity, sitting, dental hygiene. That's this under the radar thing. Your teeth, your dental health plays a huge role in your brain health. They are now finding out about certain bugs and viruses that kind of hide in the gums and the tissues of the teeth and can get into the bloodstream and get into the brain and cause damage over a period of time. Okay? There are some very, very common bugs that can do that. And so it's very important to have your teeth checked and all that. Unfortunately, another thing is the silver fillings we've had all these years. We're now beginning to find out that silver filling is not really a good idea after all. And that because they're now finding out every time you clench and you chew stuff, minute particles of the mercury, it's not really silver as much as it is mercury that gets into the bloodstream and can affect the brain as a toxin. So it's very important. You need to know that. Next slide. I just want to talk about sleep because next slide, because it's so important. It's actually one of the dirty dozen I mentioned. Insomnia, remember we said so insomnia, lack of sleep. It includes things like sleep apnea, being interrupted at night, prostate issues, and so on and so forth. Sleep is crucial. Proper sleep is crucial to brain function. You've got to sleep in the dark. If you can't get your shades to cut out the lights, get a face mask, an eye mask that blackens it out, because your brain needs complete, total darkness to sleep. If you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not getting good quality sleep, You are not making you're not consolidating your memories. You are not detoxifying your brain, because it's during the time when you're sleeping that your brain is able to flush out toxins, including the amyloid plaques that are associated with Alzheimer's dementia. So and they've shown that when people's sleep is interrupted, they begin to accumulate amyloid plaques, which everybody heard about the amyloid plaques, right? So Alzheimer's disease, the signature problem in Alzheimer's disease is the accumulation of certain proteins called amyloid plaques that shut down the brain over time and cause the dementia. We know sleep is a big problem. Next slide. Okay, I mentioned that. Next slide. All right, next slide. So the Harvard study is now gone on for about 80 years. They studied them as medical students in Harvard, and they followed them over a period of time. And the thing that they found out, that those who are the most successful financially, the happiest, the most emotionally solid, the healthiest, and so on and so forth, were those who had good quality, who had and maintained good quality relationships throughout their lives. And they found they met them in their 80s and 90s and beyond. It's amazing what we're beginning to find out about relationships. Again, I mentioned before, if you're not getting good quality relationships, your brain will begin to show shrinkage. Next slide. Vocation, hobbies. Next slide. It's really important to, reach out. Next slide. Okay. I want to give time for questions as much as possible. That's my information there. We do courses and we teach, and I also I kind of like share my time between Nigeria and here. So I'm licensed to practice in Nigeria. So what? There's some. Oh, okay. For questions, is that what? Okay.
I think dementia is trauma to the head. Such things as blunt trauma. I would love football to watch it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a good idea getting your head hit anyway. This is what I understand. I didn't hear you mention it. The other thing that seems to be in the news these days is the plaque. The plaque is clogging up and not allowing the cells to talk to each other, and they seem to have found something that would reduce the amount of it that you have. All the rest of the things you have, certainly agree with, help.
Thank you. Just a quick answer. Yeah, like I said, this is not a dementia lecture, but one of the dementias Dirty Dozen is injury. Again, let's start with letter I, and in that talk, I talk about CTE, I talk about injuries to the brain and all that. So yes, you're absolutely right. The new drug that is out, yes, it addresses the plaques, but there are some caveats. It only slows, they've been shown to slow the progression of the disease, only if it's in the very mild stage. And also, and I'm not knocking it, I promise you, I mean, I'm looking for the best drugs out there as possible. But also, there are a few side effects like brain bleeds and brain swellings that may just not work for some people. So yes, we're still very far from getting a drug that will actually treat dementia. Yes, sir.
Yes, on TV, they have this Omega. You buy one bottle, they give you one free, they send something else out,
Yeah.
and you're cured. How can they get away with that? I didn't buy it. How do they get away with this kind of advertising? Do you ever see that Omega advertised on TV?
Yeah, I mean, they put a lot of stuff out there. Yeah, I don't know how they get away with it. It's strange to me.
The other one is Prevasil, I think. They interview a guy. He says he took it and he can leap tall buildings and, he's a new man. The FTC said, stop that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, here's the thing. They kind of dance on the edges a little bit. They don't come out and say this treats dementia. Or they just say, well, I had memory issues, now I can remember stuff. So they're kind of like skirting the edges, but it's not, someone has a question back there. Yeah, hello. Yes.
How about the investigative drugs that are produced by Lilly and Biogen to help slow dementia? Have you any comment on that?
Yeah, most of what Lilly and Biogen, I think there's another company too that just came out recently. Most of what they focus on is on the plaques.
That's what he said
And
earlier.
on removal of the plaques. So they are complex immune drugs that basically attack the plaques and remove them. What we know, and they've got limited results, like I said, but you got to catch the person at a very mild stage, right? And it has a few side effects. So some people have brain bleeds, some people have brain swellings. It's still promising, but we're not anywhere close to getting a drug that will treat it. And my problem with that is that they're focusing on only one piece of the puzzle. The plaques are one thing, but there's a huge amount of other things as well that are causing dementia, including things like inflammation, including things like connection, low transmitters, reduction in certain nutrients, reduction in hormones. You got to have a more holistic, the brain is far too complicated to address it with just one thing. Yes, sir.
There is a.
Sorry, Howard?
Yeah.
There's somebody here, so after him, I'll just get this question from Barry over here, all right? Yes.
Okay, there's a test for the probability of having Alzheimer's. What is your recommendation for someone who might have a family history but no signs of Alzheimer's, someone taking the test?
You know what, I would recommend if you have access to taking the test, take it, but with a caveat. Some people, again, people are different. They react. Some people get overly worried and they get stressed out. Other people have a more measured approach to it and they begin to take the necessary steps and actions to prevent it. A good example is, as anybody know who Chris Hemsworth is, the guy who played Thor in Avengers? Wow, this is an enlightened crowd here. Okay, anyway, so Chris has both, apparently he has the genes, so he has a very high risk of having dementia. And so he's got the money, yeah, so he's doing all the things he needs to do to be able to, he's actually taking a step back from acting, so he's actually trying to address it. I would say whatever you can do it, but you got to learn how to keep your brain healthy. So I do have a course too called Keeping Your Marbles. I may speak on it here one of these days.
I have a question. First, a statement falls into what you said. I read a study, which I think is very apropos to this group. You talk about connections and relationships.
Yeah.
That people who are hard of hearing,
Yes.
that are in their family circles or friends and aren't really hearing what they are, and they're not engaging in
What
those
I
groups,
did, I made.
are at a high risk of getting dementia because they're not
easier
connected.
Having, after
Well,
having this thing, I had
I
zero.
actually needed them when I did that study. I went to Costco and bought a
So
pair
I keep them,
before
put
the
them
VA gave
in
me
the
my pair.
bags.
Good.
In a foil
Question,
can,
If
cover
you're
it.
already on a
Boy.
lot of medicine,
Throw
Yes.
it for
be over a
these-
dozen
Somebody's
pills a
on the
day,
telephone who
use
is
a lot of these good
unmuted.
vitamins. Can you overload with taking vitamins that are going to interact with
Mhm.
all your pills for the rest of your systems?
Quite true. So yes,
I'm
I
opposed.
would recommend that
Yes, I
before
mean,
you go on,
big
I
groups
gotta
don't
say
think-
this. So this is the official line. You gotta
So,
check with your doctor
and then
before you go
whenever
taking any
it's,
extra pills and all
perfectly
that.
fine.
If he
All right,
just
sounds
dismisses
good.
it, then
All right,
you
thank
need to
you.
lean in
Bye.
and press further. Because I guarantee you, you need this. And if you are low in these things, it will affect your brain. So maybe ask you to do a test and find out for sure. But I promise you, most doctors don't know about those things that you need, and they will just poo-poo it, unfortunately. But you need it. If there's one thing, what's the one thing I said you need to get more than anything else? What's that one thing? Vitamin D. There's anybody who argues against that simply doesn't know what they're talking about.
I wanted to ask, is there an animal model to study Alzheimer's? And a related question is, what forms these amyloid plaques? Or what cells form them? Are they dead neurons or what are they?
Great question.
I understand that they're protein accumulations and they occur elsewhere in the body, but what part of the brain is making them?
Great question. It's interesting. The amyloids proteins actually made by is one of the waste products. The neurons is part of what comes from metabolism in the brain. So it's I got to be frank with you. I can't tell you exactly which the plaques are amyloid. Yeah, but he's asking what makes the amyloid. So it's the breakdown products of immunoglobulins. Immunoglobulins are like proteins in the brain as well. So it's just breakdown product stuff. Are you a doctor, sir? Oh, man, you're the man to be giving this lecture.
I have
So that's a great question. They have not been able to actually reproduce an animal model. So Alzheimer's disease is probably one of the few, if not the only disease they've not been able to adequately reproduce in animal studies. Now they can do plaques and all that, but like I said before, Alzheimer's disease is certainly a lot more complex than just the plaques alone. So amyloids, so they try to get mouse studies, but it is not the same as really what is happening in the human brain when it comes to Alzheimer's disease. Yes, sir.
Okay, hold your questions till I get to you, okay?
One thing I didn't hear you mention is intestinal microflora as a possible cause of.
So one of the eyes is, I talked about the dirty dozen. If I have the opportunity to, I will come and talk about the dirty dozen. And one of them is intestinal dysfunction. That's an eye there, right? And yes, we do talk about the microbes, the dysbiosis, the imbalance, and how the gut-brain connection and how microbes can set up immune problems that can attack and cause dementia in the brain as well.
Two things, excuse me for butting in. Two things. Number one, it's not necessarily just the amyloid
transfer
production. It's the
good food
ability to remove
into
the amyloid.
intestine to counteract
Absolutely. He said, so yes, you can. So there's a new study that they're doing called fecal microbial transplant, where they take poop from a healthy individual and they put it in a person with degenerative condition like Alzheimer's disease. And I don't think they're doing that in Alzheimer's disease yet. No, it's not stem cells, actual poop. Actual poop. They get it out of somebody and then they transplant it in somebody else. I'm not sure they've started doing that with Alzheimer's disease, but they do that with autism. They've done it without autism with really good results. Sir, do you know if they've done that with Alzheimer's disease? Okay. All right. So fecal, I know it sounds gross, but yes, because of the bacteria, what we know in Alzheimer's disease is that the bacteria in the patient or the individual is very different from the bacteria or are very different from the bacteria in a normal person. And they can transfer the poop, which contains the bacteria, from the normal person to an unhealthy person, and they've begun to see some results. Remarkable area of study, but we'll probably talk about that some other time. Yes, sir.
One point, can this be reversed? Is there a chance down the pike they'll be able to reverse it, the dementia? And that's the first question. And what is the difference between D and D3?
What is the difference? Okay.
That's basically it.
That's basically it. So vitamin D is just the overall vitamin D. Kind of like you got vitamin B and you've got like 8 different vitamins. So D3 is one of the vitamins under the whole D umbrella. There's D2, which is what most doctors prescribe. Then there's D3, which you get over the counter. What we know is D3 is more natural, is more bioavailable, is certainly more effective, and has less risk of toxicity than D2. For your other question, are we going to get be able to reverse Alzheimer's disease? There are actually doctors in this country who are actually reversing it, and they are being attacked. I mean, one is a neurologist called Dale Bredesen. He has a book called The End of Alzheimer's Disease. It's a really good book, but he addresses it from, he's a neurologist, so he's got all the qualifications. He's being attacked, unfortunately, but he addresses it from several different areas, from your hormones to your lifestyle to the food you eat. And he's gotten about 3,000 people who he's gotten off the diagnosis. He's reversed it, and they've come out to talk about their stories. But the approach seems, the standard approach seems to be, let's find one drug. And that's where I feel that's why I feel that they keep tripping over it. One drug isn't going to do it. One drug isn't going to do it. You got to address it from several different angles. But yes, they are reversing it. Yes, sir.
Didn't mention use, reading, crossword puzzles, just using your brain.
Great. So another I in the dementia's dirty dozen is inactivity. And that includes mental inactivity and, of course, physical inactivity. Lots of studies coming up about doing these challenging things with your mind. But what is more important, believe it or not, has greater impact on the brain is actually the physical activity, most especially using resistance, using weights. I know. I'm not talking about the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, but I'm talking about just stressing your muscles. The more active and the stronger your muscles are, they have found a one-to-one correlation between that and brain health, long-term brain health. So, and there's a gym right here. I hope you know that, by the way. Get a gym instructor and let them show you how to use weights safely, so you can be doing it at home. You may not even need weights. I use bands. So before I go, my routine is before I go to the shower, I have this band thing, this resistance weight band thing. There's no weights at all. And I kind of like do 50, come out, do 50 and all that, just to get a routine going. You've got to strengthen your muscles. You've got to strengthen your muscles. Next.
Dr. David, we want to thank you very much this morning for a very timely talk.
Thank you.
This is a subject that all of us, when you get to our age, directly or indirectly, we all think about. So thank you very much for making us more informed.
Absolutely. I appreciate
Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you
Thank you for your time.
Friday on Zoom and next Tuesday in person on Zoom. Be
Wonderful.
safe and have a great week.
Wonderful presentation.
There are the list of speakers on the table where you picked up and bought your tickets earlier, because I know someone asked for a list of speakers.
Is this, oh, God. That
Guys, Dr. David would like to do a few videos for anyone who could just take an extra 5 minutes. And he is going to just ask you a couple of questions about his presentation. Just come over to him, please.